They will tell you this video is dangerous, and they are not wrong. What you are about to hear has the power to shatter years of pain, betrayal, and self-blame that was never truly yours to carry. Arthur Schopenhauer did not merely speculate about the struggles of human relationships. Long before you were born, he diagnosed the very wounds that would shape your life. This is not abstract philosophy. Think of it as a survival manual disguised as metaphysics. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. A young man, let's call him Noah, spends his 20s chasing the dream society promised him. Find the right partner, build a life together, and live happily ever after. He pours everything into this vision: his time, his money, his emotional vulnerability. But instead of fulfillment, he finds himself drained, manipulated, or abandoned. By his mid-30s, Noah is divorced, financially broken, and emotionally hollow. Now pause and ask yourself, how many men do you know who share Noah's story? This is not a rare tragedy. It is a pattern, a system. And Schopenhauer saw it clearly 2 centuries ago. In his work, The Metaphysics of Love, he dissected the fairy tale of romance with surgical precision. What we call love, he argued, is less a divine gift and more a biological trick designed by nature to keep the species going. The passion, the obsession, the poetry, it all serves a reproductive function before reality comes crashing in. But here is where things grow darker. Modern society has not only inherited this illusion, it has weaponized it. Schopenhauer predicted that, as women gained social power, a radical idea in his time, the nature of love would shift from a collective duty to something transactional. He even wrote that women were shaped by nature to be caretakers and teachers of childhood, precisely because, in his view, they were themselves childlike, vain, and short-sighted. At first glance, this sounds like crude sexism. Yet, when we examine the historical record, his perspective becomes more complex. In 1852 Europe, a divorced man could lose his children, his wealth, and his reputation in a single stroke, while his former wife walked away largely untouched. Sound familiar? Schopenhauer called it the legalized plundering of male labor. Fast forward to today. Roughly 80% of divorces are initiated by women, and the average man loses half of what he has built in the process. Consider Friedrich, a 19th century German merchant. He married a woman of high social standing, only to discover that she had been secretly draining his accounts to finance the business of her lover. When he sought divorce, the court sided with her, excusing her actions on the grounds of her supposed fragility. Friedrich spent his final days in poverty, dying in a charity hospital. Now, replace 19th century Germany with today's family courts. The stage may have changed, but the script is strikingly familiar. The faces are new, yet the dynamics remain the same. You have been conditioned to believe that love is salvation, that vulnerability is strength, that sacrifice is noble. Schopenhauer would have laughed at such innocence. He once remarked that the happiness of a man is to do what he wills, while the happiness of a woman is to will what he does. In plain terms, the system is not broken. It functions exactly as intended, extracting value from men and redistributing it elsewhere. But Schopenhauer's insight reaches further than most realize. If we follow his thread into the present, we find that modern psychology, social media, and even legal institutions have been constructed in ways that reinforce this imbalance, keeping men bound to a framework that quietly resents their existence. The darkest truth is that men themselves often participate in their own undoing, convinced that submission to this cycle is a form of virtue. The first step out of this labyrinth begins with a forbidden thought, one that challenges everything you have been taught about love, obligation, and identity. You wake up in a world that tells you masculinity is toxic, that your desires are predatory, and that your worth is measured not by who you are, but by what you can provide. This is not an accident. It is a carefully constructed system. one that Schopenhauer described with unnerving clarity. He warned that the more a man becomes aware of his own value, the more he must resist the tyranny of women. Let that word sink in. Tyranny. Not partnership, not love. Tyranny. Modern psychology has been reshaped into a weapon. Take the idea of emotional labor. What began as a feminist critique of unpaid household work has evolved into a moral cudgel, used to shame men into perpetual guilt. You are told to open up, to be vulnerable, to share your deepest emotions. Yet here is the brutal truth Schopenhauer exposed. Women despise weakness in men. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that when men display vulnerability, especially sadness or fear, women perceive them as less attractive, less competent, and less desirable as long-term partners. The researchers called it the weakness penalty. Schopenhauer simply called it nature's order. Meet Oliver, a 8-year-old software engineer. His girlfriend of 3 years insisted that he share his deepest fears. One night, carried away by trust, he confessed the traumas of his childhood, the bullying, the loneliness, the nights he cried himself to sleep. She held him, told him she loved him. 2 weeks later, she ended the relationship. Her words were simple. "I just don't see you as strong anymore. This is not the exception. This is the rule." Schopenhauer warned that women's love is conditional, while men's love is sacrificial. And sacrifice, when demanded without reciprocity, becomes another form of slavery. If psychology is the velvet glove, then the legal system is the iron hand. Schopenhauer wrote that marriage is the trap set by nature and perfected by society. Consider no-fault divorce. Introduced in the 1970s under the banner of gender equality, it was sold as liberation for women trapped in unhappy marriages. Yet, the numbers reveal a different story. In the United States, women initiate about 80% of divorces. When wives earn more than their husbands, the likelihood of divorce jumps by 50%. Men, on average, lose half their assets and fail in custody battles nearly 80% of the time. This is not equality. It is predation. Look at Robert, a surgeon in Florida. He married his college sweetheart and worked 80 hours a week to build the life they dreamed of. At 45, she filed for divorce. No affair, no abuse, only the phrase, "I'm not happy." The court awarded her the house, half his retirement savings, and $4,000 a month in alimony. Today, Robert lives in a one-room apartment, still practicing medicine at 62 because retirement is out of reach. Schopenhauer's verdict was clear. The law presumes men guilty for the crime of existing. And then there is the digital marketplace. Instagram, TikTok, dating apps. These are not platforms for connection. They are attention markets where women auction their beauty and men pay with validation, money, and dignity. Schopenhauer foresaw this as well. He wrote that the more options a woman has, the less capable she becomes of genuine love. Take Jake, a 3-year-old college student. He matched with a girl on Tinder. They talked for weeks, went on 3 expensive dates, then she vanished. A month later, he saw her on Instagram, vacationing in Bali with a man driving a Lamborghini. Her caption read, "Know your worth, queens." This is the paradox of choice. Surrounded by endless options, women become unable to commit, while men, desperate for connection, become disposable. But what if the ultimate prison is not women, not the law, not social media, but something deeper? This is where we uncover the final layer of Schopenhauer's prophecy, the way modern men have been brainwashed into worshipping the very chains that bind them. The escape is darker than you imagine, and freer than you have ever dared to believe. There is a silent genocide unfolding right now, one ignored by governments, mocked by the media, and normalized by a society that convinces men to accept it as natural. Every 30 seconds, somewhere in the world, a man takes his own life. In the West, men account for 3 out of every 4 suicides. with divorced men 8 times more likely to end their lives than their married counterparts. These are not mere statistics. They are rituals of sacrifice. Schopenhauer saw this centuries ago when he wrote that the first 40 years of life give us the text, and the next 30, the commentary, revealing how little we truly understood. Most men never live long enough to reach the commentary. You are born into a world that despises you. From the moment you learn to speak, you are told that your natural instincts are dangerous, that your ambition is oppressive, that your pain is deserved. But the cruelest trick is this: you are trained to enforce the system upon yourself. Schopenhauer called it the will turning against itself. A man who believes his own oppression is justice becomes the perfect slave. In 2018, a 32-year-old engineer named Marcus jumped from the 14th floor of his office building. His final letter read, "I'm sorry for not being enough, not smart enough for my father, not strong enough for my wife, not wealthy enough for society." What no one mentioned at his funeral was that his wife had left him 6 months earlier, taking their daughter with her after a family court judge restricted his visitation to twice a month unless he paid more in support. The last search on his phone was a simple phrase: "How to disappear without debt collectors finding you." This is not tragedy. This is systematic eradication, and it is enforced by 3 lies that keep men chained. The first lie is that love will save you. From Disney fairy tales to romantic comedies, men are fed the myth that a woman's love is redemption. Schopenhauer shattered this illusion in The World as Will and Representation. Love that promises salvation becomes the very chain that guarantees servitude. History offers its evidence. Look at Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the giant of German literature. At 23, he fell hopelessly in love with Charlotte Buff, a woman already engaged. His suffering inspired The Sorrows of Young Werther, a novel so powerful it sparked a wave of copycat suicides across Europe. Later, Goethe confessed his verdict: "Love is an ideal, marriage is a reality. Confusing the two never escapes punishment." Modern men still have not learned. They continue to stake their futures on the dopamine rush of a text message. The second lie is that your worth equals your utility. You are told that you matter only as long as you provide, whether as a paycheck, a protector, a human shield, an entertainer, a therapist, or a repairman. Schopenhauer recognized this pattern. Men are valued like tools, kept while useful, discarded once dull. Consider a 2021 social experiment. A researcher created 2 fake dating profiles. The first, Mark, 35, enjoyed climbing, had just left a relationship, and was searching for direction in life. The second, also Mark, 35, listed himself as a CFO, 6'2", owner of a Miami penthouse. The first profile received 3 matches in a week. The second, 147 inches a single day. Women may claim to seek vulnerability, but their behavior screams, "What can you do for me?" The third lie is that you are the problem. Therapy culture, self-help gurus, and corporate HR departments all chant the same mantra: heal yourself. But this is a trap. Schopenhauer warned that telling a man he is broken creates an endless market for fixing him. Take antidepressants. In 1980, 1 in 200 men were prescribed them. By 2024, it is 1 in 5. Has male happiness improved, or have pharmaceutical companies engineered permanent patience out of wounded men? There is a way out. But it demands what Schopenhauer called the denial of the will. Not the destruction of your body, but the destruction of your illusions. Step 1 is to become untouchable. Delete the dating apps. Walk away from marriages that are nothing more than legalized servitude. Laugh when they call you toxic. Schopenhauer reminds us that the free man is the one who is not afraid to stand alone. Step 2 is to weaponize your pain. Every great man in history has transformed suffering into power. Beethoven lost his hearing and still composed his greatest symphonies. Nietzsche endured decades of migraines and gave the world "Thus Spoke Zarathustra." Van Gogh sold a single painting in his lifetime, yet changed the face of art forever after his death. Your pain is not weakness. It is fuel. Step 3 is to play the long game. Modern society rewards the youth of women and the maturity of men. A woman's peak influence comes between 20 and 30. A man's arrives between 35 and 55. Schopenhauer noted that time humbles women and elevates men, provided they endure. Consider Hiroto, a Japanese office worker fired at 40. Instead of collapsing into despair, he spent 5 years mastering artificial intelligence. At 50, he was hired as a consultant in Silicon Valley, tripling his old salary. His ex-wife, who left him for lacking ambition, now works retail. His secret was simple: "I stopped living by their clock." Schopenhauer's deepest insight was not about women, or society, or even suffering. It was this: most men would rather die than think. And that is exactly what they are doing. But you are different. You are still here, still watching, still fighting. That means there is hope. If this brutal truth shook something in you, if you felt the fire in your chest, the spark in your mind, then type "will" in the comments below. And if you are ready to go further, to turn philosophy into power, watch the next video. Because what comes next is not just knowledge, it is strength.